Since mankind's discovery of fire, at least 400,000 years ago, we have seen continuous transformations of the biosphere in relation to mankind's necessities. A continuous series of discoveries led mankind to an ever greater power, new technologies, new energy sources, new species of plants and animals, constantly recreating himself and his surroundings in accord with his reason, civilizing nature and himself. He has been able to increase the amount of production possible, constantly achieve a higher standard of living, less disease, more people, and more happiness. Most of what you think of resources for his use were not even considered as options before he discovered a use for them, or could access them with a new technology. Most of them are still not accessible today and not yet discovered. But with each newly discovered resource for energy and technology to transform his surroundings, and the necessity for his well-being, the total energy into action on the surface of the planet increased. The greater power of machinery and energy source, the more the overall economy increases the total energy it can put into useful work. Incidentally, this is nothing new. And we see this process in looking at earlier geological periods from the outside, one to the next. When the photosynthetic bacteria were created in the Precambrian era, more complex chemical compounds and free oxygen were generated and present on the surface of the Earth. The overall energy consumption in the biosphere increased because a new principle had allowed for a more efficient utilization of solar radiation and actually increased the amount of energy capable of being brought into the system. An atmosphere of oxygen was created, capable of now supporting higher metabolisms of organisms, increasing the rate of useful work accomplished on the planet. Look at another transition, from the Silurian through the Devonian to the Carboniferous era. The Silurian, 440 million years ago, marked the colonization of land by plants, first begun by vascular plants with hydraulics capable of rising a few centimeters above the surface, which were able to do this on the basis of the preceding oxygen revolution, which created the protective ozone layer. Leaf development occurred, multiplying the surface area capturing solar radiation. Later, the invention of the seed, appearing in the late Devonian 370 million years ago, made it possible to move plants further inland. Trees were created at this time, stretching up to 10 meters, building on the soils of earlier creations, increasing weathering with deep roots, and creating a completely new biosphere on the planet, providing inland sources of water vapor, which led to the great inland thunderstorms, transforming the whole atmosphere and weather system of the Earth, bringing life all the way inland and leading to a peak of greening by the Carboniferous era 300 million years ago. The transition from one geological period to the next once again created fundamentally more free energy in action on the surface of the Earth, increasing overall consumption of solar radiation and overall consumption of biogenic deposits created earlier. Thirdly, a before and after picture from the late Cretaceous to the Paleocene, when flowering plants became dominant over ferns, and the Eocene, when the great grasses arose, saw the energy available on the surface of the Earth multiplied many times for the consumption of more active, warm-blooded mammals. In the course of evolution, species come and go based on the evolution of the whole system that no longer finds them useful or capable of increasing the useful work accomplished in the system. Now, when we view two systems of economy from the outside, as before and after the steam engine, and look at mankind, now in the context of the changed relation between himself and the formerly existing state, we see nothing short of an evolutionary transition. If we were to measure his outward behavior like other species, with each discovery, man is evolving to a different species. In fact, in that sense, the human is not appropriately called a species, but is better understood as a succession of states of human reason, continuously creating new species of himself, never fixed. With contributions of the best minds of Europe, the successful rise of the United States constitutional system of government made possible a self-determination and promotion of that unique power of human reason never before achievable. By the 1820s, the acceleration toward a new kind of human was underway. The successful completion of the Erie Canal in 1825 directly connected the Atlantic and the Hudson River to Lake Erie, opening up whole new regions of the Midwest to powerful productive farms and industries, while canals in Pennsylvania began construction that same year, opening up a new hard coal for the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh industrial centers, as well as eastern Ohio, and spreading into Massachusetts and New York. These changes created new dimensions to the human activity on the continent, typifying a general principle being carried out. Rather than being subject to oceanic conditions, Americans applied the principle pioneered by Charlemagne earlier, building a canal system that connected the Mississippi and Ohio rivers to the Atlantic and the Great Lakes, forming one interconnected system that transformed the relations between productivity and all the so-called natural resources, which were formerly alien or inaccessible. This revolutionary system of integration, redefining the meaning of value for whole swaths of territory, began maturing in force with the next stage, when the U.S. rail system was initiated at the end of the decade by John Quincy Adams, funded by national, state, and local credit, and overseen and designed by U.S. Army engineers. In 1825, JQA put into motion a rail link from the Atlantic port of Baltimore to the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, beginning construction on July 4, 1828. The rail would reach the Ohio River in 1851. The first spadeful of earth was turned over by the last surviving signer of the Declaration of Independence. JQA's proposal for a railway parallel to the Erie Canal went into construction in 1832, eventually connecting the Atlantic port of Boston to the large, undeveloped western part of New York State and the Great Lakes in 1840. As of that year, the United States had about 3,000 miles of railway in operation, as compared to 1,800 miles in all of Europe, including Britain. Seen here between 1828 and 1851, all of these transformations increased the value of an unused before resource, or newly available resource, and changed the relationship between production and infrastructure, allowing for a greater quality of life for the population, and thus more available time given toward cognitive development. And as an effect, each one of them created greater consumption and population growth. Consumption never simply increases. It is made possible by technological progress in some area, such as disease and pest control, an upshift from roads to rail, or new frontiers opening up. For instance, when the first through train from Boston over the Berkshires arrived at Greenbush, New York, on the east bank of the Hudson, in the evening of December 27, 1841, welcomed with rockets and cannon on both sides of the river, the people celebrating their new power over nature and the reordering of the region's geography, wrote the following. On the table was bread made of flour, which was in the sheaf, brought in a barrel that was in the tree at far distant Canandaigua 2 days before. Sperm whale oil candles, made at Albany in the morning, were burning in Faneuil Hall in Boston in the evening. Salt was on the table, which 36 hours before was 300 feet underground at Syracuse. So man does not naturally increase his consumption. It is made possible by new technology, implying the capability to continue increasing his productivity, resource diversification, with more people supported on a given area of land at a higher living standard.